Good morning, it's Gary Sly and the Legacy of Handmade Objects. It's Monday morning, April the 6th, the day after Easter. Don't usually get to sit down in the mornings, but I had a fairly open schedule today and got a lot of my chores done early. So I'm able to take a break now. It's starting to get warm, so you can see I've got a little fan rotating around back there. I realized over the last month or so I might have endangered my status as a floss tuber by going off in all kinds of other directions and maybe not talking too much about stitching. So I thought maybe I'd do a little recap today and talk a bit about this, that, and the other that's happening and what I'm working on right now and what I'm dreaming of starting and all that kind of stuff. Spring is a busy time here in the shop. I'm dying to show you what's going on in my two areas here next to the big room where Chrissy Morgan is moving in with Finally a Farm Girl. But I don't want to steal her thunder, so I'm going to wait a little bit. But very soon we're going to take a little video tour of that space and hear some more from Chrissy about what she's dreaming of for that area. It's just really exciting to have another fiber person here in the shop and kind of get a feel for what her passions and ideas are. But short of that today, I do want to just kind of talk a little bit about what's happening. I've mentioned in the past a community project that I have going on where people are working on quilt squares, and I'm going to be putting those together in a quilt to remember the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. As you can see here, I've actually started piecing some pieces together, and I show these to you because they give a pretty good example of different kinds of things that are going on. This person obviously did some yo-yos and some buttons and did a real fancy kind of work there where they put those together. This person took fabric paint and simply signed her name and gave a little greeting, which is perfectly great. I don't have any issue with that at all. And this person found some patches that talk about patriotism and the 250th anniversary. So there's quite a variety of things coming in, and as this project continues to unfold, you'll see more of it. If you are in the area, I hope you'll think about contributing. Because I really don't have any specific expectations in terms of how skillful you have to be or anything like that. So I hope you'll enjoy seeing that as the year goes along. For me, the focus of this 250th anniversary is really our local communities. So many things above us and the state and federal level we don't have too much control over, and sometimes we get into arguments about. But here at the local level, I know that we are going to continue to care for each other and do what we need to do to be in community. So that's what I'm celebrating. Got a couple cool little patterns in. Teresa Kogut, of course, is one of a very popular designer that's putting things out right now. And I mentioned on my Instagram today that, in my opinion, you can start working on a Christmas project anytime. So I'm glad to see that she had some cute little designs out that I picked up just after market. This is one called Frosty Pals, and those are kind of freestanding little pieces that you can do. And then she's got something called Flurry, which is a collection of 9 designs. And these are really cool. There's snowmen and all kinds of other things going on in there. It's kind of hard to see them without the color, but she's got some really nice stuff. And this is a great resource. When you can buy a collection, you got a whole lot of ideas going on. Oh, let's see. So what am I stitching on right now? I have been putting quite a bit of time into a wedding sampler that I'm doing from Counting Puddles with all these wonderful, wonderful colors. I'm not going to say too much about the details of this because it is intended for someone that I care a lot about, and I want it to be a little bit of a surprise, though I don't think that person really ever looks at Flosstube. and you can see where I am with that. The beautiful colors are really beginning to pop out. I'm using a 28 count fabric, and the nice thing about it is it's, as you can see, almost see-through. It's very, very sheer looking. It's called Artichoke. I bought it from Wishell, and it is the fabric that they call for in this design. But what I like about it is when you look at it, you can see how the stitches really pop out, because the fabric itself is not the focus here. It's just more of a background to use. Not quite as thin as something like a mesh, which I know some folks like to use, and I know Erica Michaels used to do a lot of designs with. But it's pretty close to that, and it gives you a really great effect of this bouquet kind of popping out at you. So that's kind of fun. You've seen my needlepoint designs that I've been working on for some time that I borrowed from some William Morris designs, and I've decided to start working on the background now, but I'm doing something a little different. See if you can kind of see what's going on there. It's a specialty stitch where I do over 3 and then over 1 and over 3 and over 1 to create kind of a crosshatch pattern there. I figured that might be a little more interesting than just a plain old tent stitch, especially since I'm using this more neutral color in the background. This is the first of 4 of these that I'm working on, and as you can see, this is oranges. And there are chairs here in the shop that are very soon going to be covered by those, or I shouldn't say soon because I don't know how long that might take, but eventually will be done. Now I realized as I'm sitting here that there's one more thing I didn't bring over, so I'm going to have to stand up and rush over there and bring it back, but I'll be right back. There we go. I find that different projects work better in different areas. Upstairs, where I have a good light and my perfect chair for stitching, I can easily do the 28 count, and I can also do pretty good job with the background on this needlepoint. But down here in my front room, where I have groups and things like that, the light is not quite as good shining directly on the fabric that I'm using, and so I've decided for the time being my downstairs project is one that you've seen me working on already. It's a kit from Needle Treasures where it has 18 vintage Santa Clauses on it. I have kind of put this aside a bit because I've been spending a lot of time working on the sampler for the wedding, but I have gotten back into this just a little bit. You can see I finished one Santa, and I've got a little wagon and another Santa on the way, and there are eventually going to be 18 of these vintage Santas on this Christmas tree skirt. So that's kind of what's happening. So there are really 3 projects right now that I'm spending time on: the Christmas tree skirt, the cushion for the chair, and putting the most effort and the most time into getting that wedding sampler done, because the wedding is going to be this fall, and I don't want to be dragging my feet and not able to get it framed nicely and do all the things I want to do with it before the deadline comes along. At the same time as I'm working on things, like most of you, I've got some other things that I've recently picked up that I want to do. My want to do stack is getting bigger and bigger. I don't go ahead and kit up everything when I get it. Sometimes I buy kits, and that's fine. They've already got everything in them, but I'm not quite as forward thinking as to think that if I've got 20 projects that I should go ahead and kit up all 20 of them, because I feel like maybe that's jumping the gun just a little bit. I know some of you like to do that, and you know, certainly not trying to discourage that. I just know that I'm not ready to do that quite yet. But there are a couple of pieces that I picked up at market for sale here in the shop that I love and that I know I want to add to my stack. And of course, that's the advantage of having a shop, is when you see these things, you can grab them, put them in a pile somewhere and have them for yourself. Tiny Modernist, I love a lot for their detail. And they had this piece called Birthstones and Flowers, which gives you the 12 months. See if I can kind of show those in order. Gives you the 12 months of the year with the birthstone and the flower of the month that goes with those. You already know that I like really complex stuff, and I don't mind a lot of detailed backstitch. So my guess is that probably what will happen is I'll do these as one big piece. It is nice that you could pull these off and do separate ones, maybe do decals or little things for folks for individual birth months. But I know for me, this is one that I want to add to my list, and it looks like it's on pretty standard kind of white fabric. Ada probably, but I'm not sure. I haven't looked that far into it yet, but I just love the vibrant colors and the details there. So that has made its way to my stack of things that I'm dreaming about working on and probably will arise at some point. Another piece that I picked up at Market by Gene Farish is called America Land That We Love. And you already know of my love of trivia having to do with the states and presidents and things like that. And so this called to me, and it's another one of those pieces that I suspect I'll do as one big piece. But it is nice that it gives details that you could use if you wanted to put together something, maybe with the states that you've lived in or the states that you've visited or something like that. Speaking of states and all that sort of stuff, my big 50-state quilt is out on loan again right now. It's at the Lake County Fair, which opens a little later this week. I'm going to go up and see it over the weekend and see what it looks like there. I suspect that's the last time it'll be out somewhere else on display. I'm looking forward to finding a place to put it here in the shop once I bring it back from the fair. But I like to enter fairs, and I like to encourage folks here from the shop to enter fairs, because that's a good way for the general public to know that we're still doing this stuff. People will come into the shop, or they'll come up to me at various times and say, that's kind of a dying art. Well, you talk to my friends and my fellow stitchers, and they'll tell you there's nothing dying about it. Finally, one piece that and I know I've already showed these, but it relates to Chrissy Morgan, and finally a farm girl who's moving in next door. She has begun this series of the presidential homes, and also she's got little vignettes of the presidents and their wives. And I think her intention is to continue forward with this, at least into the near future. This is one that I bought at Market this year, and it's Monticello, which is, of course, the famous home of Thomas Jefferson. I went to the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. That was my undergrad education, and have very fond memories of visiting Monticello back in the day, 45 years ago or so, when I went to school there. It wasn't quite as big of a complex as it is now. It's fairly easy to gain access to the building, and I even had the opportunity to go upstairs in Monticello one time. But those days are long gone. It's big business, and it's quite an involved trip now when you go to Monticello, but certainly one that I treasure. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with these. I want to collect them as Chrissy does them, and my thought is I might put them together maybe on another quilt or something like that. But if I do that, I don't want to do the entire pattern. I probably will just do the home itself, or maybe even something with the images of the presidents. I don't know. And you will have seen these before, I suspect, but I also have the first two that Chrissy did. Peacefield, 1788, which is John Adams, and later John Quincy Adams also lived there for a good while, up in Braintree, Massachusetts. That's a wonderful place. If you get a chance to visit that, that's one of my favorite presidential homes to visit. And then, of course, we all know about Mount Vernon on the banks of the Potomac, just down the river from the capital, Washington, D.C., which is, of course, also named after George Washington. I'm pretty enamored of these images and all the things that they represent, and I look forward to working on those. Now, these are collaborations between Chrissy and Finally a Farm Girl and Twin Peak Primitives. So those are things that you can look for, and Chrissy will have all of her patterns and productions, and also those of Twin Peak Primitive, here in her shop as she begins to move forward. Her grand opening is the first Saturday in May, which is May the 2nd. Also got a retreat going on that day, and market outside, and the first anniversary of my friend who has the plant shop in the back. There's just all kinds of wonderful things happening that weekend. And then that Sunday of the first weekend in May, my good friend Margaret will be opening her one-woman show here in the front studio. And I'll take you on a tour of her stuff when we get ready to start having people view that. So I'm excited, I kind of always am, about what's coming up and what's new. And I'm always excited to be stitching and finding ways to enjoy this craft that we love so much. I hope for you that spring is beginning to emerge, and you're beginning to see some crocuses pop up between the snowflakes or whatever. I suspect there's still some cold weather in different parts of the country. And for those of you in other parts of the world, you may be experiencing the beginning of fall if you're in the southern hemisphere. So that's cool as well. That's a wrap up for today of what I've got going on and what works I have in progress. And I hope for you a pleasant week. As always, this is Gary Sly and the Legacy of Handmade Objects.